of the job. All right, Shabbat Shalom. Tonight we will be looking at pagan holidays, their origin and their forgery. Their origin and their forgery. Origin is how they began, or where they began, or who began them, or who instituted them. And the forgery, you know, a forgery is a imitation or a replica of an original. It's not real. Pagan holidays. We're going to look at the etymology of holiday. Where does this, or where did this word come from? According to Google AI, the word holiday originates from the Old English word halig daeg, from halig, which means holy, plus daeg, which is day, literally meaning a holy day. Originally, it referred strictly to consecrated religious days, such as Christian feast days. Over time, the meaning evolved from a religious festival to include any day of exemption from labor, with the two senses diverging by the 16th century. According to Etym Online, the word is from the 1500s, earlier holiday, 1200 or late 12th century as a surname from Old English, halig daeg, which is the same thing that Google AI said, holy day, Christian festival, a day consecrated to religious observance, religious anniversary. So its an example is the Sabbath from halik, which means holy. In 14th century, meaning both religious festival and day of exemption from labor and recreation. So you don't work on holidays originally. Don't work on holidays. It's a day of ceasing from work. Should sound familiar to a lot of us. So that's the etymology of holiday. So it really, as we would say as Hebrews in relation to our Moedim, which are appointed times, set apart days, we would say holy days. And that's where they got holiday from. So holiday is derived from holy days. It's a day that is set aside for a specific observance or celebration. So that's the etymology, that's the root or the source of that word. So the first holiday we are going to look at, we go in sequential order. I know that their first holiday is New Year's Day, but you will soon see why I didn't start with New Year's Day. So we begin with Valentine's Day, the first holiday on the pagan calendar, Valentine's Day. I remember we're looking into the origin of these days. People usually think that Valentine's is a very special day, harmless day, because it's about love. According to Britannica, Valentine's Day is a holiday on February 14, when lovers express their affection with greetings and gifts. Given their similarities, it has been suggested that the holiday has origins in the Roman festival of Lupercalia, held in mid-February. The festival, which celebrated the coming of spring, included fertility rites and the pairing off of women with men by lottery. And you should know what a lottery is. You buy a ticket, you have a chance to win. So it's lottery, them use a chance, a pick kind of thing, like raffle. At the end of the 5th century, Pope Gelasius I forbid the celebration of Lupercalia and is sometimes attributed with replacing it with Saint Valentine's Day. But the true origin of the holiday is vague at best. Valentine's Day did not come to be celebrated as a day of romance until about the 14th century. Valentines commonly depict Cupid, watch it now, the Roman god of love, along with hearts, traditional the seat of emotion, because it was thought that the avian mating season begins in mid-February. Birds also became a symbol of the day. Traditional gifts include candy and flowers, particularly red roses, being a symbol of beauty and love. And I remember I told you guys a long time ago that romance and romantic come from Roman. So I don't want any female to tell me that I am not romantic. You're right. And I am proud to not be romantic. Anyways, it continues. Lupercalia, which they say seemingly is where Valentine's come from, is an ancient Roman festival that was conducted annually on February 15, mid-February. So Valentine's is February 14, Lupercalia was February 15, under the superintendence of a corporation of priests called Luperci or Luperci. The origins of the festival are obscure, although the likely derivation of its name from lupus, the Latin for wolf, has variously suggested connection with an ancient deity who protected herds from wolves and with the legendary she-wolf who nursed Romulus and Remus as a fertility rite. So you see fertility come up again. The festival is also associated with the god Faunus. So we see Cupid, the god of love, and now the goddess of, or the god of fertility, Faunus, coming up. And all of these are Roman gods. According to NPR, from February 13 to 15, the Romans celebrated the feast of Lupercalia. The men sacrificed a goat and a dog, then whipped women with the hides of the animal. So that's the skin from the animal, them take it and then beat the woman them. From the animals they are just slain. Young women would line up for the men to hit them, and they believed this would make them fertile. So fertility again. The brutal fete included a matchmaking lottery in which young men drew the names of women from a jar, and then they would go and have sex and hope that children would come from the act. And oftentimes, if they didn't like each other, they move on. If they like each other, then they move on into marriage and continue being together. If they don't like each other, they move on, and next year will come different person. Heights of order. Look at Deuteronomy 7. When Yahweh your Elohim gives them over to you, in verse 2, you shall strike them and put them under the ban completely when you go into the land of the Canaanites. Make no covenant with them. Show them no favor. Do not intermarry with them. Do not have sex with them. Do not give your daughter to their sons, and do not take their daughters for your son. For he turns your sons away from following me to serve other gods, and then the displeasure of Yahweh shall burn against you and promptly destroy you. But this is what you are to do. Break down their altars, smash their pillars, and cut down their Asherah or their Asherim. Write down that word. That word is a very important word. Asherah, or if you want to write it as Asherim. Very important word. Remember, we're dealing with Valentines, and Valentines have to do with the fertility. And burn their carved images with fire. For you are a set apart people to Yahuwah, your Elohim. Yahuwah, your Elohim, has chosen you to be a people for himself, a treasured possession above all the peoples, above all the nations, above all the families, above all the clans on the face of the earth. Do not do what they do. Full stop. If you see them involved in a them whoredom activity, they're passing the woman and doing lottery or raffle for the woman, don't join them. So that's Valentine's. Ash Wednesday and Lent is the next one that's up. And you're soon going to see that all of these are connected. Ash Wednesday and Lent. Lent originated as a 40-day preparatory fast before Easter for early Christians, officially recognized at the Council of Nicaea in 325 AD. Says, I just come something. Council of Nicaea institute Lent. You notice them not say it instituted in the Torah. It's the Council of Nicaea come up with Lent. And that's why we don't deal with Christianity. We don't associate ourselves with Christianity. We don't call ourselves Christians. It serves as a period of prayer, fasting, and almsgiving, inspired by the 40 days Jesus spent in the desert. The term derives from Germanic words for springtime. Now, according to Britannica, Ash Wednesday in Western Christianity, the first day of Lent, occurring 6.5 weeks before Easter. Count 6.5 weeks. 6 sevens, 42. Half of 7 is 3.5. 42 plus 3.5, we're looking at 45.5. So it's about 46 days between Ash Wednesday and Easter. Follow it carefully. So it's 6.5 weeks before Easter, usually between February 4 and March 11, depending on the date of Easter. It is immediately preceded by Shrove Tuesday. So Shrove Tuesday comes before Ash Wednesday. Ash Wednesday is a solemn reminder of human mortality and the need for reconciliation with God, and marks the beginning of the penitential Lenten season. It is commonly observed with the distribution of ashes and with fasting. So, you know, man put on sackcloth and put ash when he's grieving or when he's mourning or when he's giving penance, penitent, because I have sinned. I am nobody, so I am bringing myself to a low state. Eastern Orthodox churches begin Lent on Clean Monday. So this sounds like confusion, no? And therefore do not observe Ash Wednesday. So it depends on who in Christianity you ask. Ash Wednesday is of no relevance. Some people start them Lent on a Monday and them call the Monday Clean Monday. So that's Ash Wednesday and Lent. Ash Wednesday and Lent, as you would have seen just now, the 40-day period that leads up to the big bad Easter. Fun fact, did you know that Easter is not celebrated as an official public holiday in America? Well, we have some people here who lives in America, so they should know. It's not a public holiday in America, Easter. Anybody knew that? So
Yeah.
Easter is the principal festival of the Christian church, which celebrates the resurrection of Jesus Christ on the third day after his crucifixion. The resurrection is a central doctrine of Christianity and forms the basis of salvation and the hope of eternal life. As its feast, Easter is a joyful affirmation of the belief that through Christ's conquering of death, all Christians will subsequently share in his victory over sin, death, and the devil. Although still predominantly a religious festival, in some places the introduction of customs such as egg hunts, treat-filled baskets from the Easter bunny has gradually led to the holiday being embraced by both Christian and secular communities. This sounds like pasa pasa, particularly in the United States and the United Kingdom. The earliest recorded observance of an Easter celebration comes from the 2nd century, though the commemoration of Jesus' resurrection probably occurred earlier. So you realize that when you look at these days, the Lent and the Ash Wednesday and the Easter, these reputable sources, and I say reputable in quotation, the reputable sources such as Britannica, they will want to give you the origins in Christianity to make it seem as if it's legit, even though for us Christianity doesn't mean legit, but for the average person who goes seeking the information. And they continue to say, fixing the date on which the resurrection of Jesus was to be observed and celebrated triggered a major controversy in early Christianity. in which an eastern and a western position can be distinguished. The dispute known as the Paschal controversies, and why it's called Paschal is because the Greek word for Passover is Paschal, the Hebrew is Pesach. So it became known as the Paschal controversies. So the dispute was not definitively resolved until the 8th century. In Asia Minor, the Christians observed the day of the crucifixion on the same day that the Jews celebrated the Passover offering. That is on the 14th day of the first full moon of spring, the 14th of Nisan. Now, this would make sense because if you claim that Easter is a celebration of Jesus' death, as they say, then you would have to celebrate it on the Passover because he died. And the Passover. Now, so you go. Silence. Okay. All right. So it makes sense to celebrate this thing here on the Passover. If he died on the Passover, you said that Easter is about his death. So one part of Christianity decided that they have to celebrate it. Whichever day Passover is, then that is the day when we have to celebrate our Easter. So whenever the Jews them have them Passover, the Christians should be having their Easter. This sounds like mix up and blend, but it is what it is. That would be the 14th day of the first full moon of spring. The resurrection then was observed 2 days later, because it should be 3 days and 3 nights, or 2 days later, on 16 nights, and regardless of the day of the week. So them people here sound like them consistent. So they say that whenever the Jews have them Passover, that is the day of Easter. And then 2 days after Easter is the resurrection day, regardless of whenever in the week it falls. However, in the West, the resurrection of Jesus was celebrated on the first day of the week, so it always falls on a Sunday, when Jesus had risen from the dead. Consequently, Easter was always celebrated on the first Sunday after the 14th day of the month of Nisan. So they put more emphasis on the resurrection and said it have to be on a Sunday because him raised on a Sunday, so every year we celebrate it on a Sunday. Increasingly, the churches opted for the Sunday celebration and the quartodecimans, 14th day proponents, that's what they call them. So when you deal with the 14th day, they call it quartodecimans. The quartodecimans proponent remained a minority, and the Council of Nicaea in 325 decreed that Easter should be observed on the first Sunday following the first full moon after the spring equinox. Easter, therefore, can fall on any Sunday between March 22 and April 25. So Easter really is about the resurrection, as you would see, because if Easter is a Sunday, then Easter is about the resurrection and not necessarily the death. But here is where they drop the ball, because Britannica will tell you that Easter has no basis in paganism. Easter comes from the church, and the church is pagan for us, but for the average reader, they will tell them that Easter has no origin in paganism. But where they drop the ball is with the rabbit. The rabbit is the culprit. So let us look at the silly rabbit. How the rabbit get involved in Easter. The Easter bunny is an odd character, Britannica says, to associate with the Christian festival celebrating the resurrection of Jesus Christ. Just as Santa Claus has become synonymous with Christmas, the festival celebrating Jesus' birth, the Easter bunny has become one of the most recognized symbols of Easter. But what does a mythical rabbit that leaves baskets full of goodies on Easter morning have to do with Christianity? The tradition of a rabbit that brings our hides decorated eggs and candy for children has its roots in much earlier societies, Since Neolithic times, roughly 10,000 to 3,000 BCE, the hare is a form of rabbit, a form of hare. The hare has been linked with various religious rites. In Europe, the animal has been found in ritual burials. Pay attention now. The animal has been found in ritual burials beside Neolithic human remains. Archaeologists believe these hares represented rebirth. So the rabbit represent rebirth. Why rabbit represent rebirth? In Britain, where the brown hare, the Lepus europaeus, was introduced in likely the late Bronze Age or early to mid-Iron Age, the animal evidently had some religious significance. In Commentari de Bello Gallico, which describes Julius Caesar's conquest of Britain in 55 or 54 BCE during the Gallic Wars, Caesar noted that eating rabbits in Gaul was not religiously permitted. Excavated trash pits from the same time period confirm that human consumption of rabbits was infrequent. Boudica, queen of the ancient British Iceni tribe, is said to have released a rabbit for purposes of divination before leading a revolt against the Romans in 60 CE. After receiving positive news, she offered thanks to Andraste, the goddess of war. Andraste was one of several ancient female deities who were associated with the rabbit. Another was a hybrid goddess who melded Andraste with Diana, the Roman goddess of the hunt. The warrior goddess's affiliation with the rabbit may have arisen because of rabbits' aggressive mating behavior in the spring, leading to the expression Mad March hare or Mad March rabbit. So anybody who know about rabbit knows when rabbit drop and a 1 or 2 or 3 or 4. So rabbits are aggressive mating animals, and when they give birth to a lot of offspring. And the rabbit is connected to all of those goddesses. We continue. During this time, males and females show an inclination for boxing, which also occurs for territorial reasons between rival males. In ancient Greece, rabbits were associated with Aphrodite, the goddess of love, and her son Eros, for whom the rabbit was a symbol of unquenchable lust, probably because of the animal's famously prolific breeding habits. So all of this is connected to Valentine's, the Lent, the Ash Wednesday, the Easter, everybody connected. When you check Google AI, the Easter Bunny originated from German Lutheran traditions as the Osterhase, Easter hare, a folkloric figure that judged whether children were well behaved and delivered colored eggs to good children, sound like Santa Claus. This tradition, likely merging ancient fertility symbols with Christian resurrection themes, was brought to America in the 1700s. While the original figure was a rabbit, while the original figure was a hare, over time it became recognized as a bunny. It was adopted into the Christian holiday to represent new life and resurrection. Do you think all of this is a coincidence? So we see Aphrodite, we see Diana, we see Cupid, we see Faunus, all of them representing either love or fertility. Let us bring it full circle now. Easter, which we are familiar with. Easter. The word Easter, because Britannica tells us that Easter has no basis in ancient paganism. Britannica says those who say that Easter derives from Ashtoreth is a dubious claim. When you ask Google AI about Ashtoreth, Google AI says Ashtoreth was a major ancient Near Eastern goddess of love, fertility, and war. Worshipped by the Canaanites, the Phoenicians, as a consort of Baal, known as Astarte in Greek, and linked to the Babylonian goddess Ishtar. She was often depicted as a nude deity, a naked deity representing the moon and the sexuality. Her cult, which involved ritualistic prostitution, Valentine's Day, was frequently condemned in the Hebrew Bible as or the primary cause of idolatry. When you go to Wikipedia, Wikipedia tells you that Astaroth, a demon, is a Christian archdemon in demonology who is considered to be the great duke of hell. Astaroth was theorized as an alter ego of various goddesses in ancient mythologies across different cultures, which were demonized later by the biblical demonology system. The name Ashtaroth was ultimately derived from that of 2nd millennium BC Phoenician goddess Astarte, who was known in ancient Hebrew and Semitic tribes as Asherah. Did you not just write that word? An equivalent of the Babylonian Ishtar and the early Sumerian Inanna and the later Greek Aphrodite or the Roman Venus. One and the same, with different names from different cultures. Ashtoreth, Asherah, Aphrodite, Ishtar, Easter, Venus, whatever you want to call her, is the same goddess of fertility, the same goddess of idolatry, the same goddess of prostitution that Yahuwah warned us about. 1 Kings 11, 5 and 33. Solomon went after Ashtoreth, the mighty one of the Sidonians, and after Milcom, the abomination of the Ammonites. Verse 33, Yahweh said, because they have forsaken me and bowed themselves to Ashtoreth, the goddess or the mighty one of the Sidonians, to Chemosh, the mighty one of the Moabites, to Milcom, the mighty one of the children of Ammon, and have not walked in my laws to do what is right in my eyes, and my laws and my right rulings, as did his father David. And you can continue to read. He goes on to say, for this reason, I will tear the kingdom from your hands and give it to your enemy. So that is what Solomon was guilty of. And we know that Solomon did not exercise any inhibitions when it comes on to women. Solomon explored all his fantasies with women, and Ashtoreth was one of the gods that he aligned himself with. And so you would imagine that he became a part, or he was associated or joined himself into their promiscuous activities. And Yahuwah was very, very wroth with him. So the Valentine's is not a good thing. The Easter is the same. All of it is one big ball. All of them first set of festival there, from Valentine's, the Lent, the Ash Wednesday, the Easter, all of it. One could say that the reason why, because Valentine's is February 14, Lent is February 15, and in 40 days you're fasting and praying. I guess you're fasting and praying because you wore out yourself from February 14. So you need 40 days of prayer and fasting to be holy by Easter. It's all madness if you ask me. Exodus 34, verse 12 to 14. Guard yourself, lest you make a covenant with the inhabitants of the land where you are going, lest it be a snare in your midst. And I would have already showed you in previous presentations how Israel made covenants with other nations. Yahweh said, don't make any covenant with these nations. Break down their altars, smash their pillars, and cut down their Asherah. Cut down their Asherah. Do not bow yourselves to any other mighty one. Why? For Yahuwah is a jealous Elohim. How did Israel make covenant with other nations? Any bright student would like to tell me. How you make a covenant? How you form alliances in ancient culture? How much time you teaching on this? How do you form alliance in ancient culture? If France and England want to be alliance.
By adhering to what they do, to their practices.
Yes, but what institution they use? Somebody said it in the top. Marriage. Thank you. Marriage. And what is marriage?
Sex.
Sex. So it's sex. Whoredom. Deuteronomy 7. If you don't believe me, see it here. Verse 3. Do not intermarry with them. Do not give your daughter to his son. You do not take his daughter for your son. For they are going to turn you away from me, and I am going to destroy you. Yahweh says. This is what you do. He continues in verse 5 of the same chapter. Break down their slaughter place, the altar, and cut down their Asherah. Cut down the Asherah, because the Asherah caused the whoredom. The Asherah is the goddess of fertility. She is the one who caused them to do them promiscuity. Them have sex in a them temple in honor of Asherah. She's a naked deity. She's nude. The image of her is a nude image. So them have sex on them altar. Yahweh said, I don't want it here. Mash it up. When you're going through the land, mash it down. Don't join them. Don't give your sons to their daughters, and don't take their daughters for your sons. Don't have sex with them, because that is marriage. Do not intermarry. Judges 3. Thus the children of Israel dwelt in the midst of the Canaanites, the Hittites, the Amorites, Perizzites, Hivites, and Jebusites, and took their daughters to be their wives, and gave their daughters to their sons, and they served their gods. And thus the children of Israel did evil in the eyes of Yahuwah, and forgot Yahuwah their Elohim, and served the Baals and the Asherahs, the Ashtoreth, the Easter, the Ishtar, the Dianas, the Cupids, the Venus, one and the same. Whoredom. We've been guilty of it from Adam get Cain, come straight back to today. Valentine's is the modern depiction of all of this, virgin. There's nothing new under the sun. So these things are a forgery of the original. Because you notice Lent begin with Ash Wednesday. Lent is 40 days and ends with Easter. What is the original? Leviticus 23. In the first new moon on the 14th day of the new moon is the Passover. Big feast. On the 15th day of the same new moon is the feast of unleavened bread. 7 days you eat unleavened bread. Verse 10. Speak to the children of Israel again and tell to them, when you come into the land which I give you and you reap its harvest, then you shall bring a sheaf of the first fruit of your harvest to the priest. So this is the day of wave sheaf. You bring this on the morrow after the Sabbath, the priest waves it. So this is wave sheaf. This is the beginning of a festival that is called the Feast of Shavuot. So wave sheaf begins the Feast of Shavuot. So them have Lent. Lent begins, Ash Wednesday begins Lent. Wave sheaf begins the Shavuot. Verse 12, on that day, when you wave the sheaf, you shall prepare a male lamb, a year old, a perfect one, as an ascending offering to Yahuwah. And from the morrow after the Sabbath, from the day that you brought the sheaf of the wave offering, you shall count for yourselves 7 completed Sabbaths. Even unto the morrow after the 7th Sabbath shall you number 50 days. 7, 7, 49, and then the next day, 50. So on the 50th day is the end of Shavuot. And you say, yay, hooray, and we have big celebration. 50 days. So you realize that this thing here is a knockoff, and I'm going to show you a little later from this. The next one that a lot of persons don't like to hear. So a lot of persons are comfortable with the Easter and the Valentines, probably, because some people still love them Valentines. A lot of persons are over the Christmas. But a lot of persons don't like the Mother's Day. When you tell them about the Mother's Day, it's like you're crucifying their mother. Anyways, again, you have to know to search for these things, because if you just ask the reputable sources, they will tell you it began in 1901 with a lady by the name, I don't remember her name now, but a woman from America. Madness. You have to know where to look for the information. And you have to know what to type. So if you ask for the origin of Mother's Day, you're going to hear about the 1901 lady in America. If you ask for the ancient origin of Mother's Day, then it's a different story. Google AI says the ancient origins of Mother's Day stem from spring festivals in Greece and Rome. So we keep seeing the same nations over and over with all of these celebrations. So it stems from spring festivals in Greece and Rome dedicated to mother goddesses. Greeks honored Rhea, the mother of the gods, with ceremonies. Romans celebrated Matronalia, a festival for Juno. These early rituals focused on fertility, nature, and honoring motherhood. So you realize that all of them are the same thing, fertility and goddesses. When you go to Faushan.com, so our journey in the footsteps of Mother's Day takes us back to ancient Greece. In fact, it was none other than Rhea, the mother of Zeus, who was the first to see her role as a mother celebrated during spring ceremonies held in her honor. On the other side of the Ionian Sea, Roman matrons were celebrated in March during religious festivals called Matronalia. The fact that these early days of Mother's Day take place around the spring is no coincidence, since it is quite simply the season of fertility, the one that sees nature reborn. So they do it in spring because during spring, everything comes back to life following the winter season. Now you tell me if this source is not a reputable source. The American University in Cairo, Anna Jarvis, thank you, that's her name. Tell me if this is not a reputable source. The American University in Cairo, and if you don't know, Cairo is the modern-day capital of Egypt. Ancient Egyptians held an annual festival to honor Isis, one of the most popular and enduring goddesses of ancient Egypt, who represented the ideal mother and wife and was the patroness of nature and magic. According to ancient Egyptian mythology, Isis was the wife of Osiris, who was also her brother. When Osiris was murdered by their envious brother Set, Isis gathered Osiris's body parts that had been scattered around Egypt and used them to impregnate herself. She then gave birth to Horus, who avenged his father's death and killed Set, becoming the first ruler of Egypt. As a result, Isis was regarded as the mother of all pharaohs and became symbolic of motherhood, and an annual festival was held in her honor. The religion of Isis was introduced to the Hellenistic world by the ruler Ptolemy I Soter as a means to unify the Greeks and Egyptians in his kingdom, which spread across modern-day Egypt. Do you know what Hellenistic means? Or Hellen, or Hellenize? Tell you this already. Once you say Hellenize or Hellenistic, it's referencing to Greek culture. Once you see Hellen, Hellenistic, or Hellenized, it means Greek. So the Greeks basically got it from the Egyptians. So this source goes beyond the previous source that tells us that it started with the Greeks and the Romans and shows how the Greeks and the Romans got it. So the Greeks and the Romans take up where the Egyptians already had. And this was done by Ptolemy, because Ptolemy was one of those rulers who came after Alexander the Great died, and his empire was split to his 4 generals, split in 4, and each of his generals took part for themselves. Ptolemy ruled Egypt, and Ptolemy started to conquer other territories, and he brought this into the Greek world, or the Greco-Roman world. In the Greco-Roman culture, Isis was associated with the goddess Demeter. Watch this now. Isis was associated, the Isis, which is the Egyptian goddess, was associated with the goddess Demeter, Astarte, and Aphrodite, which furthered her symbolic ties with fertility and femininity. So you realize you're seeing the same names that we saw for Valentine's, for Easter, for Ash Wednesday, and for Lent. Same names. Same names of countries and empires, and the same names of gods and goddesses. The next one is Halloween. I don't think Jamaicans need much convincing that this one definitely is pagan. So we won't spend much time on Halloween. Halloween is a holiday observed annually on October 31st and noted for its pagan origins and its Christian roots, mighty Father, as well as its secular traditions. Halloween also marks the beginning of All Hallows Tide, a Christian triduum. Latin mean period of 3 days dedicated to remembering the dead, that begins with All Hallows Eve, that's October 31st, and is followed by All Hallows or All Saints Day, which is November 1, and then All Souls Day, which is November 2. So it's a 3-day celebration. All Saints Day commemorates all the saints of the Christian church, both known and unknown, who are believed to have been received directly into heaven after their death. There are various accounts of its origins. In the 7th century CE, Pope Boniface IV established All Saints' Day, originally on May 13. In the 8th century, Pope Gregory III moved the annual feast to November 1, perhaps in part to supplant, watch this now, pagan holidays with a Christian observance. So you realize that, let me just finish the reading and then I'll tell you why Christianity take up all of these days. The day after All Saints, November 2, was later designated as All Souls Day, devoted to praying for the souls of all the faithfully departed. So Christianity has this uncanny habit of rebranding these days. So them take it up and rebrand it and make it seem as if they are the ones who instituted these days, and these days are perfect days and are holy days. And you realize that the popes are very instrumental in this, and they do it because, one, Christianity does not have its foundations in Bible, in Scripture. Christianity is a religion that came about as a result of the merger of state and religious belief. And I say religious belief for lack of a better term. They wanted to merge the state and the religious belief. And so the popes, in an effort to de-paganize the religion, would rebrand these days. So you realize that the Halloween, about from a long time, I used to celebrate on May 13, the Pope moved it to November 1. The All Saints Day, sorry. Move it to November 1. Because he wanted to be called All Saints Day, and he don't want it to be remembered as the Day of the Dead. And so move it to All Saints Day and say that they are celebrating the saints who they believe have gone to heaven. But the celebration existed long before. And I'll just give you this source because this source shows the hypocrisy. And they don't go before the Christians take it up. Although Halloween has religious roots, by the end of the Middle Ages, the secular and the sacred days of All Hallows, Eve and All Saints, they had merged, and the Reformation essentially put an end to the religious holiday among Protestants. Although in Britain especially, Halloween continued to be celebrated, but now as a secular holiday. When you ask Google AI give you a completely different story. Halloween origin traced back over 2,000 years to the ancient Celtic festival of Samhain, pronounced Samhain, which marked the end of harvest and the beginning of winter in Ireland, Scotland, and northern France. Celts believe this night blurred the line between the living and the dead, prompting the lighting of bonfires and the wearing of costumes to ward off spirits. They realized that these people had their practice and they did it in the late winter going over into spring part there, so for the harvest season. But the Christianity take it up, move the date, call it All Saints Day. Rebranding. They're very good at that. They did it with Easter and all of these things, but the reality is that eventually with all of these days, the truth comes back to the fore because they switch the Easter from the rabbit to Jesus Christ and the cross and all of these things. And usually in Easter, you hear about the death and you watch a movie, Passion of Christ, and you see all of these things. But nowadays, you don't see that anymore. It's all about the rabbit. And for Jamaicans, it's all about bun and cheese. It's the same with Christmas. Move it from the madness, bring it to Jesus Christ, and it's a birth of Jesus Christ and joy to the world. Nowadays, jingle bell, and Santa Claus and Rudolph and the reindeer. You don't see nothing about Jesus nowadays. So the truth eventually comes back to the fore. So them just bring it into the church and pretty it up. And then eventually, the whitewash sepulchre reveals its contents. Look at Maccabees 6, 2 Maccabees 6. Not long after this, the king sent an old man of Athens. Anybody can tell me where Athens is found? Greece, thank you. Sent an old man of Athens to convince, not to convince, because compel means to force the Jews, the Yahudim, to depart from the Torah, the instruction of their fathers, and not to live after the instruction of Elohim, and to pollute also the temple in Jerusalem, and to call it the temple of Jupiter Olympius. And this is a very, very important scripture. You do not change the name of Yahuwah's festivals, of Yahuwah's property, and expect that he's going to be okay with it and it is going to be holy. You call it what he calls it, you do it when he says to do it, and you keep it as how he says to keep it. If you change anything that is going against his command and you have polluted it and it is now unholy, it is tainted and unclean. So they decided that they are going to pollute the temple in Jerusalem and they are going to call it the temple of Jupiter Olympus. And that in Gerizim of Jupiter, the defender of strangers, as they did desire that dwelt in the place. The coming in of this mischief was sore and grievous to the people, cut the people them to them core. For the temple was filled with riot and reveling by the other nations. What is reveling? What is reveling? Carnival, taboo, daga party, wamupangofiar, daga master. Reveling in the temple. They sound like the Asherah. They sound like the fertility. So the reveling with the other by the other nations who dallied with harlots, see the whores, and had to do with women within the circuit of the holy places. And besides that, they brought in things that were against the Torah. So them carrying dildo, all different kind of nastiness. Yes, broke outness. Thank you. The altar also was filled with profane things, which the Torah forbids. Neither was it lawful for man to guard the days of Sabbath. So then put aside the Sabbath, put aside the ancient feast. This sounds like Christianity, don't it? Put aside the Sabbath, give us Sunday. Put aside the ancient feast, set aside Passover and tabernacles, and give us the Easter and the Christmas. And they said that you could not even call yourself a Jew. So them say call yourself Christian. Christmas. And we won't spend any time on this because we did a presentation very recently about birthday and Christmas celebrations. So we know exactly where Christmas comes from. The Dies Natalis Solis Invicti, which is the birthday of the invincible sun. And we know about the Julius Caesar and all of the excitement with Christmas. And the Saint Nicholas and all of these things. We know about, we would have studied this. I know that December 25 had nothing to do with Jesus in quotation. Let us look at Santa Claus. The popular conception of Santa Claus originates from folklore tradition surrounding the 4th century Christian Greek bishop Saint Nicholas, the patron saint of children. And when I saw this, my blood ran cold because we know that the Catholic Church and their priests and their saints are notorious for pedophilia against children. Now look at Saint Nicholas, Santa Claus. And Santa Claus is very famous for putting young boys on his lap and giving them gifts. Anyways, he is the patron saint of children. Now, why would you need a saint for children? This is disturbing. Saint Nicholas became renowned for his reported generosity and secret gift giving. The image of Santa Claus shares similarities with the English figure of Father Christmas, and they are both now popularly regarded as the same person. History.com says Santa Claus, otherwise known as Saint Nicholas or Kris Kringle, has a long history steeped in Christmas traditions. Today, he is thought of mainly as the jolly man in red who brings toys to good girls and boys on Christmas Eve night. But his story stretches all the way back to the 3rd century, when the real Saint Nicholas walked the earth and became the patron saint of children. I hate that term. And I always wondered why this man come at night, why him sneak in when the parents are asleep, come down the chimney. Something is not right about this character. And the Catholic Church, as I said previous, is infamous for unspeakable crimes against young boys and girls. The legend of Santa Claus can be traced back hundreds of years to a monk named Saint Nicholas. It is believed Nicholas was born sometime around AD 280 in Patara, near Myra in modern-day Turkey. Much admired for his piety and kindness, Saint Nicholas became the subject of many legends. It is said that he gave away all of his inherited wealth, traveled the countryside helping the poor and sick. One of the best-known Saint Nicholas stories is the time he saved 3 poor sisters from being sold into slavery or prostitution by their father by providing them with a dowry so they could marry. This makes no sense to me because as far as my knowledge goes, it is the suitor who comes to marry who pays a dowry and not the father of girls who pays the dowry. So this makes no sense to me. Anyways, that is what they say. Saying he's very kind. If you ask me, this is how we call it now, a thwarting of the story, I believe. And this is my personal opinion. I believe Him pay the man and take the man daughter them and go do what he want to do with them. Over the course of many years, Nicholas's popularity spread, and he became known as the protector of children and sailors. And his feast day is celebrated on the anniversary of his death, December 6th. And Jeremiah already tell us about them Christmas celebration. Do not learn the way of the nations. Do not be awed by the signs of the heavens, because Christmas is a celebration of the invincible sun. For the nations are awed by them, for the laws of these people are worthless. For a man goes to the forest and cuts down a tree, which is the work of the hands of a craftsman with a cutting tool. Bring it to his house, and he beautify it with silver and gold, and strengthen it with nails and hammers, so that it does not turn over. Christmas and the Christmas tree. Nothing new under the sun. And from Christmas, you go to New Year's. New Year celebrations originated over 4,000 years ago with the Babylonians, who marked the first new moon after the spring equinox with an 11-day festival called Akitu, blending agricultural, religious, and political themes to celebrate renewal and the victory of their sky god. While other ancient cultures celebrated at different times, like equinoxes or solstices, the Roman adoption of January 1st, formalized by Julius Caesar, and later by the Gregorian calendar in 1582, established the date we largely follow today for a fresh start, though many cultures still observe their traditional New Year's. Babylonians, 2000 BCE, began the first recorded New Year celebrations with the Akitu festival, focused on barley harvest, a new king, and the myth of Marduk defeating Tiamat. So that's the Babylonians. Then the Egyptians and the Persians marked the New Year with the autumn equinox, that is in about September. And then the early Greeks began the year with the winter solstice, that is around December 23rd. And then Romans initially started the year in March, but after 153 BCE, January 1st became the official start, linked to the god Janus, symbolizing new beginning. So from Christmas to New Year's, I want somebody to go on their calendar, check from Christmas, December 25, to New Year's, January 1, and tell me how many days you get.
Seven days.
From December 25 to January 1 is 7 days. Counting December 25,
8.
8 days.
8 days. Watch this. Christmas to New Year's is a forgery of the truth, and the original is found in Leviticus 23, verse 33 to 36. Speak to the children of Yisrael, saying, on the 15th day of the 7th month is the festival of Sukkot for 7 days. On the first day is a set-apart gathering. You do no servile work. For 7 days you must bring an offering of fire made, an offering made by fire to Yahuwah. And on the 8th day, there is also a set-apart gathering, and you must do no servile work. This is known to the Hebrews as the Feast of Tabernacles and the 8th day. So it's an 8-day celebration for the Hebrews. Look at some interesting facts now. All the pagan holidays have roots in one or more of the following cultures: Egypt, Assyria, Babylon, Media Persia, Greece, Rome. Why is this important?
All of these have something to do with defying the principle of Abba. And the I think Egypt have something to do with Noah's son. That's thing there. Yeah.
So this is important because all of these are kingdoms that we find in prophecy, in scripture, that Yahuwah always prophesy against and say that he's going to destroy them. These are world powers who ruled at different times throughout the history of the world. And I would have shown you in previous teachings that these are all one and the same. And that's why Daniel's image that he saw, or Nebuchadnezzar's image that he saw in his dream that Daniel interpreted, was one statue and not multiple statues. One statue, but different variations of that statue. So you'd realize that all of these kingdoms are one and the same. They all ruled in the same territory, which is the Levant area, the Middle East, because Egypt is classified as a part of that area. Is nowadays them come and say Middle East. So whenever Egypt was in power, they ruled the Middle East and North Africa. Whenever Assyria was in power, they ruled the Middle East and North Africa. When Babylon was in power, they ruled the Middle East and the North Africa. When Media-Persia was in power, they ruled the Middle East and North Africa. The same for Greece and the same for Rome. And this is where all of those traditions and the holy days or holidays come from. Every single one of them have roots in these cultures. And all the gods and goddesses' names that you receive, Isis is from Egypt, and the Dianas and the Venus, the Aphrodite, all of those are from Greece and Rome. The Ishtar, the Ainana is from the Assyria. The Ishtar and all of these people are from the Babylonians and the Medo-Persians. All of those gods and goddesses, all of them are one and the same. One and the same, all of them come from the one demon that I showed you earlier. Next, watch this. Ash Wednesday is the beginning of Lent. Lent is a 40-day observance that ends in Easter, or ends at Easter, or with Easter. Easter is the observance of Jesus' death. That is the knockoff. What is the original? Wave sheaf is the beginning of the feast of Shavuot. Shavuot is a 50-day celebration. Shavuot celebrates the renewal of the covenant. Now, the number 40 in scripture signifies trial or testing, and the number 50 in scripture signifies liberation or release. So Yahuwah give us a 50-day celebration, which signifies our liberation and our release, the renewal of the covenant with him, so that we can be redeemed. Because you know redemption means you get release. You get release, you are liberated, you have new life, you have a chance. And the pagans, the demons, replace it with trial and testing of 40 days. Coincidence? Or strategic?
Strategic.
Strategic.
Next. The festive season, or the winter holiday season, runs for 8 days from Christmas, which is December 25th, to New Year's Day, which is January 1st. The first and last days are public holidays, meaning no work. Christmas celebration begins at Christmas Eve, which is the evening before. And the same for New Year's, which is watch night or New Year's Eve, begins the evening before. This is the biggest celebration of the year for pagans that culminate with the beginning of a new year, which people see as the opportunity for a new life and new possibilities. And that's why they say you have a New Year's resolution. That again is the knockoff, the imitation. Look at the original. The final festival for Hebrews, as prescribed by the Creator, is the Feast of Sukkot or Tabernacles. Sukkot is a 7-day celebration followed by an additional day called the 8th day assembly. The first and last days are Sabbaths, which are no work days. The celebration begins the evening before for both days. The number 8 in scripture signifies new beginning. And as such, the day or the 8th day points to a complete renewal of the world and the life as we know it. These 8 days are the biggest celebration in the Hebrew year. Coincidence or strategic?
Strategic.
Very strategic.
First Timothy 4, verse 1. But the Spirit distinctly says that in latter times, in the end times, many will fall away from the faith, from the belief, from the Torah. Why? Because they pay attention to misleading spirits and teachings of demons. Sounds familiar, eh?
Yes, indeed.
Mark 7. And he answering said to them, this is Yahshua. He said, Isaiah prophesied well concerning you, hypocrites, as it has been written. These people respect me with their lips, but their hearts are far from me. And in vain do they worship me, teaching as doctrine the commandments of men. So when a man say Easter and a brethren, a man says Jesus in my worship. When a man say Christmas, a man say Jesus in my worship. But him say in vain they worship me, teaching as doctrine the commands of man, because you cannot find Easter or Christmas, neither in the New, much less the Old Testament of the Bible. Because they forsake the command of Elohim and hold fast the tradition of men. So I, Yahuwah, tell you to keep Passover, you keep Easter. I tell you to keep Shavuot, you keep Lent. I tell you to keep tabernacles, you keep Christmas and New Year's. And he said to them, you set aside my commands in order to guard your tradition, to keep your tradition. Somebody might jump up and say, you're taking the scripture out of context because he was talking to the Pharisees. Fine. This is a quotation of Isaiah. Let us look at what Isaiah says. Isaiah 29, 11 to 13. Yahweh says, the entire vision is to you like the words of a book that is sealed, which men give to one who knows books, saying, I want you to follow this, Yahweh said, this vision that I give you is like a book that is sealed, which a man have the book, but him not know a book. When he say him not know a book, it means that he cannot read. So him carry to a man who know a book. That's a man who is a scribe, a man can read, a man who is learned. So him carry to a bright man and say, read this, please. And the bright man said to him, say, I am unable to read it because the book is sealed. The book locked. I can't read the book. And the book is then brought to somebody who does not know a book, him cannot read. And that man said, I can't read it either because I do not know a book. I can't read. And Yahweh says, because this people has drawn near with its mouth and with its lips, they have esteemed me and have kept, and it has kept its heart far from me. And watch this. Their fear of me has become a command of men that is taught. So they don't know the word for themselves. And so whatever man tell them is what they follow and not what is written because they don't know books. So anything where the Pope tell them, them believe. Anything where pastor say, they believe. Their fear of me has become a command of men that is taught, the same teaching as doctrine, the command of men. 2 Corinthians 11, 13 and 14. These are false disciples, false messengers, deceptive workers, masquerading as messengers of light. And no wonder, because the master Satan himself masquerade as a messenger of light. And that's why he knock off the festival, the man give you a knock off one said, masquerades as a festival of light. But when you dig deep and dig into the origin of these things, you realize that they are not light. Let us look at some facts about Christianity. So for the larger part of Christianity, the Old Testament, which is the law and the prophets, which is actually the scriptures, because the New Testament is not scripture. The Old Testament, thus says Yahuwah, where Yahuwah speak directly and say, write what I tell you to write. That is the scripture. Is not relevant in Christianity. Or they say it has been done away with by Jesus. So, and these, by the way, are the reason why this assembly does not associate in no way, shape, or form with the religion of Christianity. So they put aside the Old Testament, which is the scripture. Christianity pays little to no homage to the Jews or the Israelites. In other words, it downplays, if not completely disregards, their significance. So the people who you find in the book that Christianity subscribe to, Christianity pays no homage to them. Christianity said that those people are null and void, and Yahuwah is not dealing with those people. So them throw out them people, the people of the book. What we know as churches today never existed during the period when the Torah was written. In fact, Yahusha was known to have been found in the temple and amongst the assembly or congregation, not in church. So the same Jesus who them say make church is a man who frequents synagogue, which is the temple. Good. So the word Christ is not the correct title of Yahusha. Mashiach or Messiah is. And the word literally means anointed. The correct term directly from the Hebrew is Yahusha HaMashiach or Yahusha the Messiah. Now let us ask some very important questions. And when I ask, I want you to answer. Can a Muslim convert, rename, or translate the name of Allah to suit their own language?
No.
So why a convert? We don't even know what to call him because the original thing is the nation of the Hebrews or the nation of Israel. A man coming into Israel, why would he need to translate the name of the Creator? So the Muslim convert can't do it. And the Buddhist convert and the Sikhist convert and the Rastafarian convert can't change Selassie name. The Buddhist convert can't change Buddha name. Why the convert in relation to the Bible now change the name of the Creator? Can a Buddhist convert say to the Buddhist community that I'm from England, so instead of Buddha, I'm going to use the word bulb as his name because Buddha means enlightened one. And you know, bulb can light up. So can the English convert call Buddha bulb? And the Buddhists them acknowledge it and say, yes, his name bulb for true.
Not possible.
Would it be fair to say that all these religions stay true and firm to their roots and their respective nations, and all who wish to join them have to conform to their culture and customs? Is that not how
Yes.
all the other religions work?
Yes.
What then of Israel? Should it not be the same?
It is the same, you know. It is the same. What Christianity is a thing there, you know. It's a religion. So they came in with their thing and tried to indoctrinate others to get into their religion and to do away with their custom and practices.
Yeah, and that's the purpose of the questions, because the Christians take the book of Israel and create something new and say that Israel is replaced. Now, if I come from England, I can go and take the Quran and tell everybody from the Middle East who is Muslim and from Turkey and Asia that they have been replaced and we, the English people, are now the people of the Quran. That can never happen. So why it happened with Israel? Something not right. Anyways, 2 Corinthians 11. It is not surprising then that Satan masquerades, because if his servant also masquerades as servants of righteousness. So Satan's servants, the Pope, also masquerades as servants of righteousness. 2 Timothy 4. There shall be a time when people will not bear sound teaching. You can't tell them that Christmas is not right. You can't tell them that Easter is not right, the Mother's Day. But according to their own desires, someone is going to say, Christmas is the season of giving. That's my own desire. It's the most wonderful time of the year. It feels good. Your own desire. They shall heap up for themselves teachers tickling the ear. And they shall indeed turn their ears away from the truth and be turned aside to myths. And that is what we are witnessing in the world today. That is the end of the presentation. Questions, comments, concerns, loud outbursts. Nothing?
You spoke about Mother's Day. What about Father's Day?
Father's Day was just their effort to appease the men. And so they just said, we'll give them a day. But we don't celebrate anything that is not prescribed in the Torah. And that's why even some of the celebrations that the Hebrews themselves came up with, because I think the Jews celebrated, is it Purim? I think if it's not Purim, it's Hanukkah. But don't quote me. They celebrate Purim or Hanukkah because of the victory that Esther would have gotten in the time when Esther delivered the Israelites, and they celebrated that in the 8th month. We don't celebrate that because that is not found in the Torah. That is just something that them institute at the time, and people nowadays still celebrate it. We don't do it because it is not found in the Torah, and so we don't want to be associated with that.
Yeah, somebody asked a question in
Let me check.
in the chat about femininity. I was thinking about the same thing because I heard a girl saying that, oh, I'm rolling in my femininity. So I'm wondering what do you think about femininity? Because I saw it on the slide when we were speaking about the mother goddess. So.
You have to remember that the feminist agenda is what is ruining the family of the world today. And you'll hear the females speak about the feminine energy and the divine feminine. It's all, they don't know because they just regurgitate things that they hear. So they don't understand how deep it runs, but it's all based in everything that we looked on tonight. So this thing about the divine feminine and the rolling in the feminine energy, I hear it all the time because I watch a lot of dating shows. You have to understand that the feminine agenda, and it is so deep. If I start to talk about this now, we're not going to end anytime soon, because women are the reason why we have homosexual males, because women give homosexual males a place in society because they like them and they keep them around and they are their friends and they like how they talk and they keep them as friends. And so these men believe that they have a place in society, and so they will continue that behavior. Women embracing their femininity also pulls them away from wanting a partner of the opposite sex. And so you realize, again, that is another hit where the family structure takes as a result of this feminist agenda. The feminist agenda is also the one that pulled the women out of the house and put them in the workforce. And so we have a low birth rate, a low reproduction rate. We have broken families because no parents are home, both parents work, children raise themselves. So the feminine agenda it plays a huge role in the decay you are seeing in the society today. And I'm by no means taking away the responsibility from the men, because I go hard on the men already. But the feminist agenda from World War I, when they put the woman them in the workforce, is what Satan used to achieve this what you call it, this decaying society, to the point where you can't even recognize. And there's this gender war, male against female, and everything is male against female. It was today I was saying to Natasha this morning that if a man has a bad encounter with a female, him write off every female, me done with woman. Every woman across is, and it's the same for the female. She have a bad relationship with a man, every man across is. But if we have a bad relationship with a friend, we don't say every friend across is. We go and we have more friends. So there seems to be this thing against the gender thing of man hate woman and woman hate man, and it is going to result in a world that is 50 times worse than the one that we're living in now. And I don't want to be alive when this thing here starts to bear the real fruit that Satan is planting in the heads of these young people nowadays. That is my short answer to what you asked. So that is my take on femininity.
Yeah, and while you were presenting about the Christianity and how they would like try to, I would say, water down the other practices, it seems like to me it's like you have a dirty bucket and you're throwing water in the bucket to say you clean it, but you're not throwing out the dirt. So
Yeah.
it seems like that's what Christianity is doing, you know. You just say, okay, if I pour Christianity in another religion, that's gonna clean it, but they can still practice what they are doing, not knowing that not gonna make it holy just by you having the title Christianity on it.
Yeah. So what you have to realize that they will try to tell you that the religion was infiltrated by the state, and that is incorrect. The religion was not infiltrated by the state. The state created the religion. Rome existed before there was any church. Rome existed before. When Paul wrote to assemblies that were based in Rome. And they had their agenda, and they decided that, all right, we are going to mix this thing here. And if you realize, if you look at, and that's why persons from organizations like CGI and UCG and the LCG and the WCGs, the churches of Gods around the world, you will often hear them use the term early church. And the reason why they use that term is because they're referencing the time of the apostles, when Paul and the Peters would have been around. And those men, what they would have fought to instill in those assemblies is completely opposite to what exists today. And that's why those churches talk about early church, and it's because they're unlearned. They should say early assembly or after Messiah assembly, and not early church, because there was no church. Paul them no church. Peter no church. The Romans created church and take the Bible and try to whitewash the thing and to get the converts. And they would kill you if you did not convert. It's the only religion in history that killed persons for coming into the religion. If you refuse to come into the religion, they kill you if you decide that you're not joining. And that should tell you all you need to know. So the state never infiltrated Christianity. Christianity came about as a result of the state. Next, anybody before we end the recording? Right, I guess not. All right, so that is it for tonight. I trust everyone would have learned something and is now better informed as it relates to these days and why we don't celebrate or associate with them. And as such, when learning takes place, behavior should change. So take the knowledge, impart it to someone else, and see if we can save our fellow brothers and sisters. Shalom.